I think rapists and pedophiles should get the death penalty. Because, and I know you could easily be like, no, but Tamia, victims will hesitate to come out if they know that their perpetrator could die, or the perpetrators will just kill their victims if it means that they won't get caught. Blah, 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 blah. But it's like, I'll put it this way. I know, perfectly valid reasons, my stance does not change. I'm not a lawmaker, that's just my stance. I think you niggas need to kill yourselves. And usually the same niggas who say shit like that, they will hide for a year their opinion on the age of consent from you and say some shit worthy of Epstein's Island and disgust you so horribly. So, like, I'm just saying, like, no. I've seen your fucking, like, no. Some of you people are sick. Like, no offense, if you went through most men's porn history, you'd be like, oh, this is all just sexual abuse that you're normalizing for yourself. You are disgusting and you need to be put down like a dog. But, or it depends. Some things are fantasy, but some things it's like, why is that your fantasy? I don't blame certain things, but it's like there has to be a thing where you separate, oh, hot in concept to like, oh, definitely should never be a reality. For example, I like free use stuff. It doesn't mean that I think everyone should be treated, should have free use happen to them. Absolutely not. But some things are just really bad because mental association. It's like, no, you should not be nutting to the idea of someone wearing like fucking pigtails and dressing like a little, like, no, you're disgusting. Like, don't do that. There's many things, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it makes me sick. But I will get back on the point I was saying. I just think it's vile. Because I'll put it this way. A little girl in, I believe, Baton Rouge, I think that's how you pronounce it. Let's see. I believe she was raped, and his name was like Jason Selkins Jr., something like that. And basically, this nigga was arrested on so much domestic abuse and violence and all that shit before, and also like some sus shit that he should have never been released for. And lo and behold, the same type of nigga who would happily beat the shit out of his girlfriend for like, I'm just saying, that's the type of nigga who would hurt a child. And I'm just saying, there's a lot of sick people on this planet, and they need to be harsher penalized. I'd rather be the person who penalizes a bit too harshly than someone who will just be like, because how do I put this? Maya Angelou, she went mute when she was younger, from what I recall, because what happened was she was brutally raped by a white man, and the court system said, oh, well, we don't care because she was a black girl, so simply put, let him go free. And so I recall, I think it was her father or someone in her life shot the man dead on the court steps, and she saw it, and she associated it with massive guilt around like, oh shit, I killed that man because I spoke up, blah blah blah. And she went mute for a large portion of her life out of pure guilt and trauma and sadness. And I think eventually she did like open up about it and stuff, and it was terrible what she went through. It truly was. It was so awful. And I'm just saying, it's like, I think we need harsher penalties for these people. Now, don't worry. I also believe in like reform. I believe that if certain things are caught early, they should be reported so that people can get help. But then again, we live in a society where you can detect autism or ADHD in your kid, and people will reject even free mental health services they can get provided because they don't want to admit their kid has some differences that should be addressed healthily. And then we have tons of adults with disabilities being late stage diagnosed and finding out their parents knew like decades before that it could have been fixed, and their parents will just be like, oh well, that's because you're not a tard, that's because you have nothing wrong with you. It's like, yeah, I don't have anything wrong with me, but I am autistic, so you should have clocked that sooner, ma'am. You could have gotten me help and I could have went through a lot easier time instead of relentless bullying and suffering with grades and all that. Like, bitch. And also, I say this as someone who had an IEP. If you're ever against an IEP, I'll put it to you this way. They made a rule that I don't have to do homework because I was perfectly good at completing tasks and doing things. So homework was usually not a thing I ever had to do, ever. I got to go home and just bullshit on my phone and then come back the next day and ace all my tests. They were like, yeah, this girl's smart. She doesn't need that shit. On top of that, I also got to take my tests in a separate room when kids were too noisy, or just when I felt like I needed privacy in an environment where, I don't know, I can hear the fucking ceiling fans, or the lights were too bright, or this and that, like a less overstimulating environment. Things like that. since we all have differences, and it's good to acknowledge when some people's are more different than others. I feel like if you catch certain things, like sometimes people can have really bad OCD or intrusive thoughts, and their brain will tell them things they don't want, and then we need coping mechanisms to learn how to like cope with certain thoughts and behaviors and whatnot. And then there's also the ones who were like, there were victims of childhood sexual assault that then later on grew up in life to be pedophilic. And it's one of those things that when you first hear about it, you're like, that's some dumbass shit. But then when you do the math on it, it's like, yeah, that does add up. Like, not to say someone's business, let's just say someone I knew recently, let's just say it's one of those things where once you clock it, certain behaviors in people make sense because it's like, oh, I see. When you were 14 or 13, you had been sexually abused by the neighbors, but to you, you thought it was a hot threesome and you got sexually manipulated and violated throughout your formative years, and that's why you are the way you are now. Shit. Like, they're not a pedophile, but they are extremely sexually brazen and they don't always know right from wrong, and certain lions get like certain things are just blurred because they don't realize it's like, yeah, they were, those people were not friendly, sexy neighbors. Those were predators. And it's like I keep meeting more and more people like that, and it's really tragic. It's really sad. It's like, and then you have to explain to someone like how consent works or why being like a fucking seventh grader was not like, that's plenty of time that could have been utilized to grow and to have a lot happen. You didn't need to be going through those things, and I'm so sorry. And there has to be a cycle that ends, because especially at a young age, if you are made to normalize like, oh, here's someone who's like 25 who's trying to get with me, a 13-year-old, this is fine because I'm pretty and he says I'm perfect, like that kind of, like, it can stick with you. And then as time goes, like, it sticks with you, and as time goes on, it just, as I said, it just, it fucks up how you view sex. It fucks up your future relationship with yourself, your self image, what you feel like you need to do in a relationship to be loved or liked or not be hated. You'll realize things that were abusive that you didn't know were abusive, and it's a terrible thing. And it's a cycle. Like hell, in some areas, they normalized. Like, I'll put it also, oh my god, I can talk all day about this subject. We can talk about how Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of motherfucking King Henry, she was 17 years old when she was married to that fucking old fat maggoty, like, nigga had maggots in his legs. He was nasty. And before that, she had been sexually abused by the age of 12 by an older man, and then again when she was 14. And then at 17, she was basically sold off to the fucking king. And like, yeah, it's like, of course, when you're forced to be married to some big fucking king with a whole bunch of money and you don't have an education or anything to lose, and you have a high sex drive from hypersexuality given to you from years of abuse and your worth being tied in sex, and also the king, who you're not even that attracted to, still has the nerve to cheat on you and have affairs, you're going to have an affair of your own too. You're going to call up one of your old pedophiles, and you're going to have to sadly do what you think will make you feel good, because no one ever taught you different in a society where they normalized that behavior of pedophilia, but then also shunned you for hypersexuality, but never shunned the men for doing the same to make you that in the first place. But don't worry, I'll put it this way: Catherine Howard did die, and it was fucking sad. But I mean, I don't want to say on the bright side, but it's like the niggas that fucked her up. I recall, if from what I recall, they got tortured the shit out of her. I think one of them got fucking like strung and quartered, like that thing where you tie the legs to horses and then make them run in opposite directions so their limbs fly off, and then fucking like it was brutal. But fuck him. It's like, yeah, you're a disgusting pedophilic bitch. But then again, so was King Henry, which is why his fat ass had his casket fucking explode from all the stank ass energy in it. Like, fuck you, King Henry. We could talk about how countries with lower age of consent are not that happy. Because, and I think, funny enough, the countries that have like low age of consent and also alleged equal rights, they usually don't. It's just the same misogynistic behavior, but this time from dudes who are going to be like, hi, 13-year-old girl, you better pay half of this fucking bill. Cool. Anyway, we are like, you can live with me with your parents' consent for like 2 years, and then we can just marry the second you turn 15. And then I can be abusive to you and to anyone around you. And they won't know any better because they all were married off before they were even like 13, 14, 15. And it's disgusting. And then it'll be niggas like that who will be like, you know what? Like, I'll put it this way. Niggas like that will eventually just be like, you know what? What was that thing they did? Oh. But yeah, it's like they fucking, what happened? I had a really good point I was gonna make on teen pregnancy and also about like oh yeah, but simply put, yeah, there are countries where it's like someone was 10 years old when they were married and forced to have kids, and then by the time their own kid is 10 and about to be married off, they're 20, and 20 is still a very young fucking age. Or hell, 19 if you like 19 is such a young fucking age, whether you like to be it or not. And if you come from generations and generations of young fucking teenagers who were raped and impregnated by older abusive adults, like, I'm just saying, it's terrible out here. Anyway, we need to stop the cycle. I believe we need reform. We need research into this type of stuff, how to nip it in the bud, how to stop people from developing into worse monsters, how to teach right from wrong. I'm so glad that I live in the day and age where people are like, no, that's grooming, no, that's pedophilia. No, like, we aren't just in the day and age where it's like, oh, hey, if you're like under the age of like 13, then what happened to you was a crime. Anything above that, you're a slut. Like, that's what it was for the first half of my childhood. Then the second half was more like, hey, this is what grooming is. Actually, why is the world trying to normalize that 18-year-olds are old hags? And that, like, being fucking 13 to 15 is the best age to be. Why are we trying to use scare tactics so that women can, like, marry young as when they're dumb and uneducated and helpless and useless? And, like, or not useless, but you get what I mean. It's like, you're in your you're like, girl, you need to be, there's so, you could be watercoloring in the sun. You don't need to be raising someone's son. Like, no. And especially not with some old geezer. Trust me, you have a lot of faith and potential in life out there. Do not waste it. And I want people to have happy lives. I'd rather be on the side of kill fucking pet. Like, I'm just saying. And I say this because it's like there are people that know when it happens. They watch when it happens. They see when it happens. They witness it. And they don't do anything. You should be killing those people. Don't sit there and tolerate it. Don't normalize it. Don't get off on it. Be like, no, this is bad. You should be like, this person needs to get penalized and punished and cannot harm again. And also, if you're like, oh, what about the court systems? They can be very stupid, blah, blah, blah. False charges, this is that. We also need a better court system. We need more in depth research. I'll put it this way, it shouldn't just be someone like, do you know how many rape kits go unfucking utilized and unprocessed in the fucking court system and have been untouched, especially in New York City? Tons of women for decades didn't get any fucking justice for their cases because the cops were fucking useless. We have corrupt lawyers and public defenders and DAs and police officers and so many more people out here who just fucking don't care and don't try. And that's why someone could have a whole rape kit and a bunch of witnesses and all that, and some young man will still get a slap on the wrist, or some female teacher will still get away with sodomizing a child, and it's so fucking disgusting. We need to slam down harder. We need to try harder. We need to rebuild this shit from the ground up. But sadly, there's a lot of terrible people on this planet, and I could say a lot more, but I want to not totally be in a terrible mood tonight. Let's just say a lot of terrible stuff is normalized and even encouraged for disgusting, sinister reasons. Please fight back as often as you can, even in the smallest ways you can, because it makes a world of difference. I had a man come up to me and he was talking all about the history of this bar, and he just was like, "Oh my god, can you, like, some dude tried to like insult the owner by posting online about how back in the day when the owner was like what, 2019, like 19 or 20, like he ran off with this one girl who was like in school, and they like went on the run and got hitched and got married for a while." And then I was like, "Oh, how old was the girl?" This nigga said, "Oh, she was like 13, 14." I was like, "That's bad." And yeah, he should be called out for that. He was like, "Ugh, they were both teenagers." I was like, "Yeah, but that's entirely different." One of them, it could easily be like a sophomore in fucking college who has his whole life ahead of him and possibly has, they can drive, they can almost drink, they can go anywhere they want to in the world, they can, like, they have every single legal right you can think of. And then a 13-year-old girl is someone who hasn't even really studied algebra yet. That's someone who is in, like, 7th grade. That's someone who is at the age where they still have their braces in and need their parents' consent for field trip slips. And they probably still have their braces and probably still have, like, an interest in silly bands and temporary tattoos and a Pinterest account full of fucking Kylie Jenner lip kits and fucking pink toenail photos. The biggest concern they have is if their crush is gonna get them a Valentine's Day gift, or if they're gonna pass their, like, simple math test, not even their SATs, just a simple random Tuesday pop quiz. A grown man who is an adult, a young adult, sure, but an adult has no reason to be around her. Like, it's such a huge age gap. Don't entertain it. It's disgusting. Anyway, I gotta pass out, so that's all I'll say for now. But yeah, disgusting pedophiles. I think we need a massive reform and change in society as a whole. And I'd rather be on the extremist side than on the side that just lets young girls get married off on some terrible, terrible shit when they're like 10 to like 13 or whatever. I don't want young boys and girls getting touched. Do you know how many times I've met young boys and girls who grew up into adults who later had a hard time confronting the fact that they were molested and they had no one to talk to about it? And no justice, or hell, maybe they did talk to someone about it and justice didn't come for them despite all evidence and proof. I'm just saying, if there's evidence and proof, I much rather would favor breaking a pedophile's fucking hands and castrating him. Because otherwise, what? Would I rather just a kid get traumatized and let it happen to a million children all over, or would I rather nip it in the bud and extract the pain from the fruit? I'm just saying. Because a lot of terrible things can happen to a brain when it's sodomized. And we just, especially a young mind. So we deserve a lot better.